Now, you must be aware of this. For a long time, there was a huge rumour, at one point, a conspiracy theory, if you like, that Paul McCartney was dead and that you are not Paul McCartney, you're an imposter pretending to be Paul McCartney.
A popular conspiracy theory about Paul McCartney claims that he died in a car accident in 1966 and was replaced by a lookalike. According to this theory, the Beatles and their management concealed McCartney's death to avoid the shock it would cause to the public. Allegedly, hidden messages and clues were left in Beatles albums, album covers, and song lyrics pointing to Paul's death. However, this theory has not been widely proven and is mostly regarded as an urban legend. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss our deep dives into these intriguing mysteries. According to the claims, Paul McCartney, the legendary Beatles member who drew attention once again with his performance at the Live 8 concert, actually died in a car crash in 1966. However, the record company, motivated by sales concerns, chose to hide his death and replace him. Allegedly, a Paul lookalike contest was held immediately after the night of the accident, and the winner, a man named William Campbell, underwent a series of plastic surgeries to take McCartney's place. However, band members, particularly John Lennon, reportedly suffered moral distress from hiding this secret and left clues in their albums and songs to allow fans to discover the truth. In 1969, Paul McCartney addressed the claim saying, "I am alive and well and unconcerned about the rumors of my death, but if I were dead, I would be the last to know." Logical and illogical aspects of the theory. Among the claims made by supposed witnesses to the accident is that the damaged car was hidden with government assistance. This, according to the theory, stemmed from the government's desire to maintain its influence over the counterculture movement of the 1960s and the Beatles' role in softening social upheavals.
Every country has had a violent revolution for one reason or the other. Not one of them has the freedom we're all talking about. So we're saying give peace a chance, like nobody's ever done it before. And it's not a matter of, we're not thinking in terms of 10 years, we're thinking in terms of peace forever, And everybody's talking about now. I want peace now. We can get peace now if we want it now.
The government allegedly sought to prevent the Beatles from disbanding to keep the flower child generation under easier control. This theory highlights the Beatles' cultural and political influence and draws attention to the alleged government intervention behind the event. Those who argue for the theory's validity present the hidden messages supposedly left by the band as evidence. Magical mystery tour. For example, when the song "I Am the Walrus" is played backward, one can hear the phrase, "Paul is dead, haha." Allegedly playing "I'm So Tired" backward reveals John Lennon saying, "Paul is dead, man. Miss him, miss him." On the album cover, Paul is the only person dressed in black. In a photo where everyone wears red flowers on their lapels, Paul is the only one with a black flower. Abbey Road. You're probably familiar with the iconic album cover where the Beatles walk across a zebra crossing. Did you notice that Paul McCartney is barefoot in that photo? Behind him, Ringo Starr wears a black suit, often likened to an undertaker. Paul holds a cigarette in his right hand, though he was left-handed. George Harrison's casual attire suggests he might symbolize a gravedigger. If you look closely at the car's license plate in the background, it reads 28IF, suggesting Paul would have been 28 years old if he were alive. In a conversation with James Corden in 2018, Paul McCartney addresses this theory.
There was a huge rumour, at one point, a conspiracy theory, if you like, that Paul McCartney was dead and that you are not Paul McCartney, you're an imposter pretending to be Paul McCartney. How did this come about?
Phone me up. For years I've been able to fool people. Now in the car, you finally...
But seriously, there's some people on the internet are very passionate about this, and there's been clues. Like, is it Sergeant Pepper? You play it backwards.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
hear
the thing
words,
is, you know,
Paul is dead.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, at that time, everyone was stimulated with way too many stimulants.
Right.
So it was a pretty crazy time. This is true, this is true. And about the Beatles,
Yeah.
there were like millions of legends.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of let them go. You know, there wasn't really any way you could stop it. So we just sort of, you know. But
And people said because you weren't wearing shoes.
I wasn't wearing shoes.
On the
It was
Abbey
actually-
Road cover.
Yeah, we did the Abbey Road cover. We decided we would make that the cover, so we were going to have a photograph on the level crossing. So it was a very hot day, and I arrived in sandals. So I thought, well, I'll just kick them off because it's too hot. So I ended up barefoot on it. Well, this is a sign that it's, I don't know, Sicilian, he's dead or something.
Yeah. Can I just say though, being dead is the greatest excuse for getting out of anything.
Yeah.
If someone says, "Oh, can you come to this dinner?" You go, "Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm not." I've not read on the internet. I'm not Paul.
I'm not Paul. You don't want a fake.
Yeah.
No, when
It's a
actually
great-
it could have got me out of this. James, when you asked me, James, I'm dead.
Yes, as you've heard, Paul states that he took off his sandals because it was hot and walked barefoot on the asphalt. However, you know this explanation is quite amusing because we all understand that asphalt tends to be hotter than the air temperature. Asphalt exposed to the sun can reach significantly higher temperatures than the surrounding air. For instance, when the air temperature is 30 degrees C, asphalt can heat up to between 55 degrees C and 70 degrees C. Such temperatures can cause severe burns upon contact with bare skin. So, we can see that Paul isn't being truthful here. Why then did he walk barefoot? Yesterday and today. The album cover looks ordinary at first glance, but when turned sideways, Paul appears to be sitting inside a coffin. Can all these clues be coincidences? Of course not. But why would the Beatles, who were supposedly hiding Paul's death, leave such messages to reveal the truth? Doesn't that seem illogical to you? Fans, however, counter this by saying the Beatles, particularly John Lennon, were regretful and unhappy about hiding Paul McCartney's death. Therefore, they left clues behind so fans could understand. However, in my opinion, this was likely done as a publicity stunt. Ringo Starr, the Beatles drummer, made a statement that aligns with my view. Starr said they had a lot of fun with this claim and used it for publicity. The Beatles decided to hide secret messages in their songs, fueling this myth and making people believe there was legitimacy behind the Paul is dead story. In an interview, Starr called the Paul is Dead Theory his favorite conspiracy about the band. We only ever had one that stuck. That was Paul is Dead. And there were some songs people pointed out as being secret. John, by accident, learned how to play a tape backward, and we put that to full use. Starr continued. So we'd just do something silly at the end of a track, and it'd be all over the newspapers and on the radio. They're actually singing blah 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 blah. It just made us all laugh. All of those interesting things we said were not that interesting. We had a great laugh about that. Look at what they're saying now. Thus, Starr admitted they used this theory for publicity. Further, logical inconsistency. Finding someone with a similar face may be possible, but finding someone with the same level of talent, an exceptional guitarist, pianist, vocalist, and songwriter, regarded as one of the greatest musicians of all time, is an unrealistic scenario. Moreover, another inconsistency is that if Paul McCartney were indeed replaced, a similar approach would have been taken when John Lennon died. If the Beatles replaced Paul to continue their music, why wasn't a similar solution implemented for John? John Lennon's death in 1980 deeply affected the Beatles and their fans, but such a replacement was not attempted. This presents a strong argument questioning the logical consistency of claims about Paul McCartney being replaced. Furthermore, the tragic death of a famous artist often sparks public interest and increases sales. For instance, Heath Ledger's passing significantly boosted interest in The Dark Knight, breaking box office record. Similarly, Paul Walker's death also brought massive attention to the Fast and Furious series. Had Paul McCartney truly died in 1966, it likely would have boosted the Beatles' album sales. Likewise, John Lennon's death in 1980 increased interest in the band's music and their sales. From both economic and media perspectives, the theory of replacing McCartney appears inconsistent. Despite all this, websites dedicated to the Paul is Dead theory and discussions about clues still exist today. Beatles fans continue to share the clues they've found and their interpretations on these platforms. As always, we can never be entirely sure of the truth. So what do you think? Was Paul really dead? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below.